Good afternoon, everybody. In this era of digital world, India is looking forward to become digital India. In this direction, I would present my experience and what all is required from the side of communication technologies to make a smart city. So I would concentrate my presentation on IPv6 technologies. Next. Now, what is a smart city? All of us who are here, we may think of smart city in various ways. Somebody might think that a smart city is where everything is automatic, where there is a smart transportation system, where we have smart grid, and so many other things. That's why it is difficult to define smart city. But what we can say about smart city is that since the word city is there, it's a urbanization of smaller, towns. And these towns, when they become city, they're not only a city because many people are staying there, but all the modern facilities are also available in these cities. Can you just go back to previous slide? Yes. Now, apart from urbanization, we should also ensure in smart city that it caters to the sustainability. How would we ensure it? We keep on hearing in newspapers that on some day or the other we get directions from the honorable courts that we should not dispose the waste in lakes, ponds or rivers. So we should have good disposal system, drainage system, so that our environment becomes sustainable. We should also reduce the greenhouse gases that ensures high quality of life. Now, what would make the background or the base for a city to become a smart city? Definitely it should be the information and communication technologies. Now, what kind of network is required to cater to this ICT? A network which is open, which is scalable, and which is interoperable. Next. These are few thrust areas for a smart city, and when we say a city should be smart, we should start from our home. First, my home should be smart. Then the apartments, the buildings of that city should all be smart. We should have intelligent transportation system. We should also have smart healthcare system, smart grid and energy efficient technologies, intelligent water distribution system, intelligent pipe gas distribution system, public safety and surveillance, and so many others, to name a few. Now, what is the role of ICT to make a smart city? ICT acts as an enabler. Next, please. The planning of ICT architecture, infrastructure, is the main requirement to make a city as a smart city. So that whenever we are trying to build a new city or we are trying to convert an old city to a smart city, we can really do that based on the communication technologies. ICT also helps in efficient use of resources, intelligent use of resources. It helps in cost cutting and saving the energy. I would come to detail about all these things in my next slides. It also reduces the environment footprint of any individual. Next, please. Today we talk of Internet of Things. Now, when we talk of smart cities, we should also ensure that the dream of Internet of Things becomes possible, and it is only possible when we have sound infrastructure in terms of information and communication technologies. This means anybody, next slide, anybody, anywhere is able to use and get connected with the system that drives the life of a city. May it be transportation system. Suppose if a person wants to know, a new person who comes to that city wants to know from whenever he wants to go from place A to place B, which mode of transport that person should use, which is the, say if it is a bus, which number of bus that person should use. That person should be able to get this information on his mobile. Today mobile is the most available electronic gadget with us that almost caters to everything. It gives information about everything. Now if we build a city where we are not able to provide information on the mobile, then we would not be able to call ourselves building a smart city. That's why all these information should be available on mobile, on tablets, on laptops, on all other consumable or other appliances. This information should be available. Next, please. Now this is just a photograph that tell that there should be, when we talk of smart cities, when we say that everybody should be connected with the smart system, then it is also necessary that every equipment has an ID. Today we are living in a world of IPv4, where we all know that there is a resource crunch. So many appliances have come up that we are not able to give an individual IP to every little equipment we are holding today. We are either pulling it, it is dynamic, it keeps on changing, and that confuses us as to the who is the actual end user of my particular service. That's why we need to ensure that every little equipment which we can use as a sensor, which we call as a smart equipment, is able to be identified on the network, on the communication and information technology network which we are trying to build up. And that requires that we should build a system where we can provide a number to each and every equipment, and that is possible only when we switch on from IPv4 to IPv6. Next. IPv6 is a advanced version of internet protocol where every equipment could be given a individual address. Now what and how it will help? It will help in many ways. May it be field of telecommunication, may it be field of energy, may it be the field of defense or whatever. This IPv6 would ensure that everything is interconnected and interoperable. Next, please. And when we talk of IPv6, there are few thrust areas for government to work, and these include smart building, smart city, intelligent traffic management system, rural emergency healthcare system, distance education, power generation distribution, logistics and supply chain, and many others. Next. As I mentioned in my previous slide, smart building is one of the concepts. Now what is smart building? Today we have ACs running here. Many times when we go in theaters, we find that there are less number of people sitting, and suddenly we start shivering because of the AC that cools it so much without knowing how many people are sitting. So when we call a smart cinema in a smart city, that particular building, that particular place should be able to sense everything. That's why sensors are the biggest equipments that will make a city as a smart city. Suppose my AC has a sensor that senses how, though we have it, but in bigger buildings, in bigger places, ACs only one thing to name, but smart lighting system where it senses the presence of a person and then it switches on. If there is nobody present there, then it remains off. So such things are required to be built up, and that requires more use of sensors. Next. Now this require the sensing requires that we collect the data. There is an analytical layer that analyzes that data, may it be temperature, may it be humidity, may it be presence or absence of a person. Then there is a centralized command and operation center that controls everything depending on the logic fed into this. This would make the experience of the user of that technology better. This will drive us towards the smarter places, making places more smart. And similarly, next slide. Smart, how to make our transportation as smart, and what is a smart transportation? Suppose we talk of traffic or transportation system. I know at a particular moment, standing at a bus stop, when my bus is going to come here, in what time next bus would be available for me. If next please. Similarly, if we keep on telling that some vehicles, they make lots of noise, but we hardly find people who are able to track them. So we need to have smart sensors that automatically detects which vehicle is making more sound by measuring its decibels smartly. Why smartly? Specifically, I should mention, if there is a particular IP address fed in that particular vehicle, then we know that which vehicle is making more noise, and we can always track it and control it. Next please. Similarly, there would be session on intelligent traffic management, but this is just to give an example where all the cars, all the vehicles in a street, they interact with the traffic signal. How they interact? When they have their identity of their own, they can always interact with each other with the traffic signal. So traffic signal also becomes smart, that knows when the vehicle is coming from which direction, and based on that, based on the speed, based on the number of vehicles, the signal can keep on changing, and a person need not stand when there is no vehicle coming before a red light. Next. In intelligent traffic management system, we need to have inputs coming from CCTV, from speed detectors, from smoke detectors, and this information gets stored in a centralized server, which is then used by various agencies, may it be pollution control board, may it be police, may it be a traffic personnel. They can use this technology to make the place more smart. Next please. And similarly, rural healthcare, or when we talk of healthcare, today we all see the use of 108 ambulances. If anything happens anywhere, a person just calls 108 and ambulance comes. This happens in few cities, but this should definitely happen in the smart city, and not by a phone call, but with the click of a button in our mobiles, ambulance should come if there is some accident. And not even with the click of mobile, if there is an accident, there should be automatic system in place that sends a signal, that sends a message to some centralized place where the ambulance gets the signal and comes at the place. Next please. In fact, this system can also be used like we all have heard of telemedicine. Now when we use IPv6 technologies, when we talk of smart cities, more and more use of telemedicine has to be resorted to, so that the localized services for healthcare could be given. Next please. Next, I'll just skip this slide. Next. Now we talk of smart classes, distance education. Recently, Madhya Pradesh state has done an experiment where we have installed various equipments to ensure that a person who's teaching from Bhopal can be heard in various schools of Madhya Pradesh state. This is a step in making our classes as more smart, and this has to happen in smart city more and more and more. Next, this would ensure that the quality of education could be given at every nook and corner of the state. Next, please. When we talk of smart cities, our smart cities should be able to become smart in terms of power generation and power distribution also. Today we all know our street lights. I'll give one example. Next slide, please. I'm just giving one example. Our street lights, they remain on sometimes during summers, since the sun rises at very early. Even then, since the time is set around say 7, my street light remains on. But our smart system would be such in which, or a smart city would be such in which it detects the time, it detects the light, it detects the when the sun is coming up, and it switches off. Similarly, in the evening when it gets darker, then this the street lights automatically switches on. Next, please. Next, please. Now our warehouses can also become smart by sensors. We can monitor the humidity level, we can monitor the temperature inside the warehouse using sensors, and this signal, this data can always be sent back to a remote location from where all these warehouses can be monitored. Next. Similarly, our PDS shops, where we keep on hearing of lots of misuse of the food grain and other commodities, they can also become smart by using sensors. By giving a different distinct identity to these sensors, we can always monitor how much of food grain has been consumed, how much of kerosene has been taken away, and how many people have already got it, so that it can always be matched from input and output whether the person who the number of people who should have got it, whether they have got it or not. Similarly, we can track the distribution of food grains. Next slide, please. We can always track the trucks or vehicles carrying the food grains to various PDS shops. Next. In agriculture industry also, IPv6 can be used to provide identities to various equipments at field level. This would ensure, if suppose there is some hailstorm or rain or some other kind of problem in the field, that can be known at the real time, and action could be taken to provide relief to farmers. Next, please. And in banking sector also, IPv6 has use where all the equipments can be provided distinct identity and feedback could be taken from them. Next, please. Next. And similarly, when our cities become smart, all the equipments today you must have seen in your mobiles or in your desktop, whenever you browse internet, you find that all those ads are coming on your mobile which you like. How do they track it? Similarly, we should also track the likes and dislikes of people, and a person who is going somewhere, we should be able to give that kind of information which that person wants. This is possible in a smart city, and this is possible only when we provide a distinct identity to every equipment and every place. Next, please. Now I would highlight what work has been done in Madhya Pradesh regarding IPv6. Few days back I was having discussion with one of my friend who was telling me they want to, he's in police service, he wanted to tell me that he is designing a system where he wants the traffic signals to be automatic and so on. I told, you can do it in Bhopal or at some other places, but if you want to do it in whole Madhya Pradesh, you need to have a bigger pool of IP addresses. And it is possible with IPv6. Now what we have done in Madhya Pradesh for that, we have enabled our SWAN network, which is statewide area network, in such a way that it is now IPv6 compliant. Right now we are doing it in dual stack. My headquarter in SDC, that is also IPv6 compliant. The state data center of Madhya Pradesh government, that is also IPv6 compliant. In fact, many of our sites, I have mentioned 13, but it has already crossed this number. These many sites, out of only 35 in India, have become IPv6 compliant. Our headquarter, SDC, MapIT, all these agencies are now IPv6 compliant. but there are few challenges. These challenges, next slide please. These challenges are the dual stack use of IPv4 and IPv6. This is one of the biggest challenge. There are few, next slide please, problems in upstreaming and downstreaming when we use both of these technologies. So what is the way out? The way out is to use it, keep on experimenting, and finally shifting to this thing. Then there is another major roadblock, and this roadblock is that all our ISPs are not IPv6 compliant.